Grab your coffee, sit back, and let's talk. President Trump just launched a bold move, slapping retaliatory tariffs on countries all over the world. But these tariffs aren't random. They're aimed directly at nations running a trade surplus with the U.S. In simpler terms, America is hitting back at the countries it's been losing money to through trade at. So, what happens next? In a worst-case scenario, the U.S. doubles down and sticks with this policy long-term. That could backfire, hurting not only the global economy, but America's own. But there's another path. What if the tariffs are just leverage? A power play to force trade partners back to the table. A high-stakes gamble to win better terms for the U.S. In that case, it might not be as sweet a deal as before for exporters, but it could still lead to a more balanced and fair outcome for both sides. Still, not everyone's going to play along, especially not China. America's biggest trade rival, and perhaps the one country that won't back down without a fight that I end this video. We're digging deep. Are Trump's tariffs a smart strategy or a dangerous game? If this policy goes full force, expect the world to split. Some nations, like Vietnam, may choose to negotiate, adapt, survive. But others may strike back. Hard. China, in particular, isn't just a trade partner. It's a rival, a heavyweight. And if pushed, it will push back with everything it's got. The balance of the global economy is shifting fast. And if you think this new U.S. tariff strategy only affects a few countries, think again, and one's off the hook. The only difference? The price each country pays. Tariff rates range from 10% to a punishing 49%. Countries with minor trade ties to the U.S., like Russia, Iran, North Korea, will face the base rate. Not because it makes economic sense, but because it sends a message. This isn't just trade policy, that's a declaration. A warning, and behind that warning lies a deeper goal: to stop the loopholes. The U.S. believes Chinese companies are funneling goods through countries like Vietnam and Cambodia to dodge sanctions, and Washington's not having it. But here's the twist. Not all countries are willing to bow to U.S. pressure. Take China, for instance. A formidable adversary in this high-stakes economic chess game. They're not just going to sit back and take the hit. No, they're gearing up for a counterattack that could shake the very foundations of global trade that I end this video. We're peeling back the layers, diving deep into the heart of the matter. Is Trump's tariff strategy a masterstroke or a misstep? If the U.S. stays the course, nations like Vietnam might choose the path of negotiation, seeking ways to adapt and survive. But others, like China, could respond with fierce retaliation. The question looms large. How will this seismic shift alter the global economic balance? Let's delve into the ramifications. This new U.S. tariff policy casts a wide net, ensnaring nations across the globe. No one is spared. The only variance lies in the severity of the tariffs imposed, ranging from a baseline of 10% to a staggering 49%. Countries with minimal trade ties and negligible deficits with the U.S. face the lighter end of the spectrum. For example, Russia, Belarus, Iran, and North Korea, nations with whom the U.S. maintains scant trade relations, are subjected to the 10% tariff. While the economic impact on these countries might be minimal, the symbolic weight is immense, serving broader diplomatic and political objectives. But there's a deeper strategy at play here. One of the pivotal aims of this sweeping tariff regime is to clamp down on the circumvention of trade restrictions through third-party nations. Enter Cambodia and Vietnam. These nations find themselves slapped with exorbitant tariffs, 49% and 46% respectively. Why? The U.S. suspects that Chinese enterprises are exploiting these countries as backdoors, rerouting their goods to sidestep American-imposed trade barriers. And then, there's the curious case of tariffs on seemingly inconsequential items, like penguin ornaments from uninhabited islands. On the surface, it appears almost laughable. But beneath this facade lies a calculated move aimed at thwarting Australian businesses from dodging tariffs by registering in these remote territories. Make no mistake, this isn't merely about economics, it's a bold statement of ideology. President Trump views this as a crusade to liberate the American economy from the shackles of global trade injustices and to restore fairness to the system. His stance is unequivocal. America has been the architect of the modern trade framework, and it's high time the world showed gratitude. Instead, other nations have capitalized on this system, flooding the U.S. market with their exports while turning a blind eye to American goods. Some of you have voiced frustrations, arguing that America can simply print more dollars to buy foreign products, and that these retaliatory tariffs will only backfire on American consumers. But the reality is far more complex. While it's true that the U.S. dollar holds a unique position as the world's reserve currency, indiscriminate printing isn't. Without consequences, the value of the dollar must be meticulously managed to maintain economic stability. Similarly, expecting other nations to express gratitude by purchasing more American goods is a simplistic notion. International trade doesn't operate on sentiments. It's governed by strategic interests and economic imperatives. The shifting sands of global trade balances are inevitable. History bears witness to this. America itself ascended to superpower status by outmaneuvering predecessors like the British Empire. But now, with mounting trade deficits and a ballooning national debt, the U.S. finds itself at a crossroads. President Trump's message is clear. It's time for other nations to step up, acknowledge the imbalance, and increase their intake of American products to level the playing field to achieve this recalibration. The administration has outlined 4 cardinal objectives. 1. Rectify the trade imbalance by slashing deficits and steering towards a surplus. 2. Alleviate national debt by curbing expenditures and attracting fresh investments to bolster financial stability. 3. Reignite domestic industry by channeling investments back into American soil, reducing reliance on foreign supply chains. 4. Undermine economic adversaries, with China squarely in the crosshairs. Additionally, the U.S. seems prepared to forfeit its roles in international organizations and traditional diplomatic protocols. By the end of President Trump's first term, Washington had already blocked the functioning of the World Trade Organization, and the Biden administration has made no move to restore it. America is shifting from global guardian to a nation that protects only its own interests, even if it means turning old allies into new debtors. Ukraine is a prime example. Once seen as a recipient of generous U.S. aid, it is now buried in debt, owed to the very hand that once helped it. In the most extreme scenario, Trump might even push for military action to claim Greenland, aiming to control its strategic resources. But perhaps the steepest price Trump may pay is not international backlash. It's losing public support at home. The stock market could crash. Under Trump, major corporations drove their market caps to astronomical heights. But if tariffs and trade barriers disrupt global supply chains, bearish pressure will replace bullish runs. Inflation will skyrocket because the U.S. imports far more than most people realize, and replacing foreign goods can't happen overnight. Domestic alternatives require long-term investment, something only possible with smart policy and government support. Until then, prices will soar. And it's the American consumer who foots the bill. While corporations pocket the profits, if consumer costs rise faster than incomes from new jobs, Trump's popularity will nosedive. In the worst-case scenario, America's financial elite might abandon Trump if they get better offers from his political rivals. If that happens, the Democrats could return to power and unravel some of Trump's reforms. That's why Trump and his allies are racing to lock in irreversible changes, while simultaneously launching full-scale political warfare against the Democrats. Trump's plan is risky but calculated. If it succeeds, America becomes more self-reliant. But if it fails, the consequences will be massive, not just for him, but for the entire nation for years to come. In this geopolitical chessboard, Europe plays a critical role. While the U.S. rebuilds its economy, cutting imports and tightening financial control, Europe is in trouble. Industrial output is down. GDP is shrinking. Unemployment and social unrest are on the rise. European frustration with Trump is growing. But anger alone won't spark a counterstrike. Europe is trying to resist American pressure, using both legal and covert tactics to defend its economic interests. Yet, unlike China, Europe's buffer is paper thin. Without cheap Russian energy, its export markets shrinking and China turning from trade partner to competitor, Europe is being squeezed from all sides. Historically, the US and EU shared tight economic bonds. But Trump's new trade vision promotes American reindustrialization, and capital is flowing away from Europe back to the U.S. that I end this war. Europe is the perfect sacrificial pawn. Meanwhile, some rogue states like Iran, North Korea, and especially Russia appear left out. But make no mistake, they're not forgotten. Trump is systematically cutting them out of global trade altogether. Technically, Russia isn't hit hard by the tariffs. Trade between the US and Russia is already minimal. But this isn't just about numbers. It's about exclusion, isolation, and strategic pressure. Trump isn't a conventional politician. While Biden follows steady diplomacy and alliance building, Trump challenges the entire global trade system with unpredictable force. This unpredictability is what makes him dangerous. WY flooding the world with aggressive tariffs, Trump risks triggering a global recession. Trade shrinks. Demand for raw materials and energy collapses. Export economies crumble. Protectionism rises. Borders harden. The world could spiral into a new era of economic self-interest, where every country fends for itself. Global cooperation breaks down, that we're already seeing signs. Global supply outpaces demand. Economies are shrinking inward. Investment is stalling. The result? A worldwide downturn. But where there's risk, there's also opportunity. Trump's trade war admits a hard truth. America no longer rules alone. The unipolar world is gone. And in this vacuum, new players are rising. Some nations will actively seek independence from U.S. dominance, shaping their own economies or aligning with alternatives like China and Russia. But who can truly replace the U.S.? Trump doesn't just reshape American trade. He reshapes the entire world order. Alliances fade. Supply chains break. Markets split. Each region begins to play by its own rules. And so a new world emerges. More balanced, more contested, more unpredictable. Trade is no longer rigid. It's a weapon, a strategy, a statement. America is no longer the sole superpower. It's just one of many players adjusting to a multipolar world. Other powers, Russia, China, India, and emerging economies like Brazil and Iran, now have a chance to rise, expand their influence, and redefine global dynamics. This isn't collapse. It's transformation. And Trump? He's simply embracing the inevitable, grasping at one last shot to keep America strong before the balance tips for good. But the world isn't a tame lamb. It doesn't obey. Trump's actions are rewriting the rulebook. But in doing so, he may also unlock the door for America's rivals to claim their own seat at the table. If the U.S. isolates itself with endless trade wars, abandons allies, and dismantles partnerships, it risks losing not just power, but the future. Yes, Trump may win in the short term. He may even bring some jobs home, score political points, and project strength. But in the long run, he may leave behind a fractured world and a legacy that others must pay for. Thanks for watching. And a special thanks to everyone who continues to support Coffee Politics. Stay tuned, because this story is far from over.